history of Lake County. What it was really a matter of chronologically listing 100 stories in sequence, starting from 12 million years ago, the time when the Native Americans crossed the Bering Straits, at a time when the Ice Age dropped the water so that the land was 1,000 miles wide, and they followed the herds almost into Lake County, and then into the more turbulent times of the 1850s and 1860s, including the 10 years that were so violent from 1861 to 1870, while the Civil War was going on, 4 elections, all kinds of excitement. They blew up the dam because it was flooding the land around here, and everybody was dying from the fever. All of that was a sequence of events that happened over 11 years. But what I wanted to tell you about, something that was of great interest to me, was what it was like in the days of the pioneers. Polly Hargraves, a little 10-year-old girl who took the time to write in her diary what happened to her, and to start off with a series of 5 or 6 little stories to talk about pioneer days. She said she and her sister, her father and her brother, all enjoyed something called panola. She would watch the Indian children, the Indian women, grind panola in those hollow rocks that the Palemos had. And they mixed parched corn, wheat, manzanilla berries, mullein, grass seeds, and powdered venison. And the old Indian mother kept filling her children's hands and ours until the hollow rock was empty. And Polly says, one thing I know, it was the best tasting flour I ever ate. She also talked about bees. She loved honey, and she said so. She said, once me and Lily came to the house holding a piece of honeycomb in our hands. The bees in the comb, they were still in the comb, growing up to be big bees. But were still in the comb, and it was filled with honey and young bee larvae. They weren't old enough to leave the nest, and her mother was shocked when she saw what we had. She said, throw that away, that's nasty. Our mother said in disgust. Mama threw the honey away, but when Mama had left, they went out there and found it, and they emptied the comb, she and the Indian children she was playing with. They always shared their food together. And they finished off the honeycomb. There was bees, grub worms, honey and all. For the Indians and us, this was good fare and as good as candy. She talked about, not her, but another pioneer talked about the life in 1810. Not much later than that, but it was still a time when, not much before I was born, and they had outdoor privies at that time, no running water. Well, that's what it was like. They had lived in the house, this particular person, and there were no closets in the house, no electricity, no running water, and no bathroom. They bathed in the tub behind the kitchen stove. They brought in the water, they heated it in the stove, and they, one at a time, they took their bath. When they went to town to sell eggs and buy groceries, they traveled by horse and buggy. And the big treat, even when I was a boy, it was a big treat, was a 5-cent ice cream cone and maybe a few pieces of hard candy. In those days, that goes all the way back to 1860, threshing day was great sport. The thresher came in the middle of the field, the grain shocks were hauled to be threshed. And the workers came in at the end or at lunchtime, sat at a big table out in the yard, and all the ladies served mounds of fried chicken, corn on the cob, pie, cake. I love apple pie. They had plenty of that. And everything else we served. And then they had a garden and fruit trees in order to preserve their food, their fruits and vegetables for the winter time. They put them into tin cans, a groove around the top. They poured in hot wax to make a seal. And that's how they kept their food during the winter time. And she adds, that applies to TVs as well as, she said there were no radios. Back then they didn't think of television. So we made our own entertainment. That's what it was when I was a boy. Out and played baseball and kept our ear to the radio, of course, and listened to Buck Rogers and Tom Hanks and stories of that kind. A friend of mine who recently retired, Ray Edie Carl, told me a story and put it in the book. It was about Sasquatch. Now, the story was the same for each of the older men who had no particular axe to grind when they told her about this description of what they saw. And Ray wrote this. She said, several of the Cinnabar miners, each of which worked in different mines and did not know one another, reported seeing a Sasquatch. Each of the men gave a similar description of what they had seen and where they had spotted the creature. One man said, they're on Cobb Mountain and on Canocti. It looks like a big bear that walks upright, and it smells terrible, like rotten meat or garbage. And they make terrible noises at night. I shudder to hear a Sasquatch myself. Another story about pioneer days was one I titled Back from the Dead. Now, George Berger told this story to Letty Ussery about a personal experience, and both were residents of Lake County. There was a man called John, they called him Tort Lee, T-O-R-T, Lee. His name was John. They all called him Tort. One night, Tort went crazy and he tried to stuff his mother into the fireplace. Well, the Llewellyn house next door got word. They went over there and chased him away, and he ran out. It was middle of winter, remember, and they found him 2 or 3 hours later. He was frozen stiff. Well, they carried him in, I guess, like a big popsicle, put him in front of the fireplace and thawed him out. Then they took him home and he felt better, he got hungry, and he got a butcher knife and cut himself some bread. They were scared, but they didn't hurt him, he didn't hurt them. A year after, Alice and I, this is George's personal experience, were living in Oakland. We saw him on the street. He was so glad to see us, a pup would not be gladder. When he said goodbye, he just kept saying, goodbye, 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 walking down the street backwards, saying goodbye for about half a block. A week later, he died. Now, I believe every word of what I read, and apparently, Tort Lee was just waiting to see old friends before he passed from this life. And I was curious, and I said so in the book, when I wrote Lake County History. Here was a man frozen stiff. What medical marvel was able to bring him back to life? Even today, we would like to know the answer to that mystery.